Rebecca Wettemann.
And I'm David Mario Smith.
And here we are for the crunch, sort of IRL.
Yeah, we are in real life, though. We are live from
beautiful sunny Austin.
Horseshoe Bay Resort, yes. Nice sunny outside, right?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful day, beautiful day.
Beautiful event so far, I'm thinking. Yeah. So we're here for ZohoDay, by the way, if you didn't know that. ZohoDay 25.
Day one.
Day one, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of high-level stuff.
A lot of high-level stuff, a lot of two-letter acronyms. Well, one particular two-letter acronym that's been wonder what that could be. What could that be? Hashtag AI.
Mm-hmm.
Hashtag AI. So Sridhar started the day, right?
Yeah.
And he was kind of like, hey, big tech, so I'll back up. Sridhar talked about how big tech, especially with this recent news of DeepSeek, right, coming out with their new AI model, open source, that big tech thought that they could own AI and that everyone else would just pay tribute to them, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was all these rounds of funding of billions and millions, and a few people got rich off that, right? And then here comes the Chinese open source guys, DeepSeek, and says, not so fast. Let's democratize this thing. Everyone, AI for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And cheaper.
And cheaper, right?
Cheaper.
More cost effective and efficient. So, so is the revolutionary term now AI efficiency? Is that what we're headed toward?
Well, I thought it was interesting too that Sridhar talked about this morning what was big when we first started talking about Gen AI, which was programmers and code generation.
Yeah.
And it seems like we've kind of moved away from that. Everybody got excited about agentic, and it was about the finance people and the sales people and the service people, right? And not so much the programmers.
Yeah,
but it seems like he's really focused on how do we make programmers more productive, or even get rid of maybe the headcount in the programming department.
Because a lot of code he said was kind of boilerplate code, and so you can get
boring
rid of
stuff.
Boring stuff. You can get rid of 80% of that stuff, right?
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to see. I haven't seen that many applications of AI in the coding space, and it's maybe because the kind of folks that I'm talking with.
Yeah, we kind of focus more on the application layer guys. So I think we see all the agentic stuff, right? So it's funny they announced today the Zia agents, right? You can now sort of customize Zia agents for different things, whether it's CRM, marketing, sales, support, and service, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Right? Well, I think we're seeing everybody go in that direction, right? Where they want the vendors to reduce that complexity. Give me a low-code interface where I can put these things together, or use some of them even out of the box.
Exactly.
Right? To be able to get some quick wins with AI, which frankly in this space has been tough, right? We sort of went from FOMO to FOMU, fear of messing up. And everybody now is like, well, I want to get something out there. But I thought it was really interesting too that Sridhar was talking about, will we price software sort of as insurance moving forward?
What do you think about that?
I thought that was an interesting idea. I'm not sure how that works, but definitely the different economic models are coming, and they have to.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think, what we're seeing, especially now with all the open source models, is that AI, like you mentioned before, the cost coming down, and anyone can now do this stuff. You can run locally on your laptop right now, some of these models, right? And so I think with what Zoho is doing now, even with the Zia agent stuff, now with the Zia Studio, right, Agent Studio, you can now create your own models, borrow models, customize stuff, and deploy it in your whole Zoho environment, right? Which I think was probably one of the benefits of having the Zoho platform, because they have a unified platform, so all your data is already in context. Exactly.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting, too, that they were talking about we don't want to be resellers of infrastructure. Right? And as we think about the whole cost structure for AI, obviously that's been a big part of it. The folks that have spent tons on either building out data centers or building their applications in somebody else's data center. So that's a whole different cost component that Zoho doesn't have. Because they've got their own infrastructure out there.
16 plus data centers globally, right? And they're going to be building more. I'm thinking, right? So, and they mentioned also, I don't think they said net neutrality, but in terms of like the carbon footprint, they're sort of energy efficient as well, too.
Yeah. They're saving more energy than they're consuming, which is pretty cool when you think about it. Exactly. From an ESG perspective,
Yeah, and so with all that compute power with their data centers, you're right, they're building their own infrastructure, and they're also adopting all the other models too. So they're like supporting the DeepSeek stuff, they're supporting the OpenAI, they're supporting the Llama from Meta, and all this, the Google's models as well too. So it's like a not free for, but democratized models all across. You can bring your own model in and customize your agency stuff.
What did you think of the platform stuff that Manny was talking about?
So that was interesting. So, and again, it goes back to what Zoho is doing, right? It's like their platform is trying to be the sort of flexible platform with in-context data for every workflow in the organization. So whether it's sales, marketing, right? One single source of truth.
I think, too, it'll be interesting to see. We did a sort of deep dive on the CX platform and saw all of those moving parts this morning, but we didn't see the EX one, and that one is going to be particularly interesting. And it'll be interesting to see from a platform perspective what kind of pieces they're reusing, right? Can I use something from customer journeys and the employee journey stuff? Right, all of those sort of crossovers between CX and EX that you and I talk about all the time.
Especially if you're having customer-facing employees, right? Which their interactions with customers are directly tied to all the internal stuff as well too. So it's interesting. So you think it's going to come later today or tomorrow? When is that?
I'm not sure they're going to go through the whole platform. Maybe they will in the breakout session. But I'd be interested to see, if you think of a platform as having that sort of composable architecture with reusable pieces, where does Zoho benefit from economies of scale where they can take pieces created and sort of move them into the stack and then leverage them for different domains within the enterprise?
Yeah, I'm sure they're good because I think this week the focus is really on the enterprise as well too. So usually Zoho is SMB focused from historically, but this week, this ZohoDay, they're really focused on enterprise deployments.
Yeah, and I think the growth numbers that Vijay talked about this morning are kind of emblematic of that.
Exactly.
Seeing them go
We can't say the numbers because they're all confidential, by the way.
All confidential. But there's some nice growth there and some nice growth in terms of the size of customer, too.
Yeah, no, exactly. So where do they go from here? What do you think?
I think there's so many interesting things happening in the space, helping customers understand how they can take advantage of AI. I think it's everybody's challenge right now.
Yeah, it is. And I like the way Sridhar was addressing, and Raju as well too, in his keynote, where I think Zoho was good at trying to distill the AI, so make it more applicable, right? So Raju went through all these case studies, right? Use cases, demos, right? I think one of the big things we see with AI is that people talk pie in the sky. It's all the way up here.
It's the shiny object stuff.
What's actual applicable business use case that I can actually deploy this thing and have results right now?
Well, I think the other interesting piece too is customers and users don't necessarily know or care that it's AI. We got so excited about it's AI. Now, Raju is saying, no, it's embedded in the application.
Exactly.
It doesn't necessarily need to be shouting that it's AI for it to be valuable or useful.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and they only talked about, to your point too, Raju, large language models in the context of the application layer, which I thought was, so I can't wait till they talk more about the EX stuff and some HR stuff. You can talk the LLM stuff, but it's in the application of the actual application layer. What is it going to do for my business in terms of CRM, HR, support, and what have you?
And how many agents did they announce?
Oh my God, I don't even know. What was it?
There's a whole bunch of them.
It was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot. Because, you'd have the whole Zia agent studio. So you can have their pre-built ones, templates, and then you can create your own. You have a whole agent army. Yeah. Agent Force? No, that's somebody else?
That's somebody else.
Yeah, somebody else. We won't mention their name.
So what else are you looking forward to in the next day or two that we'll be here together?
Yeah, so I think so. This week, when I come to these shows, I love talking to customers. So it's the customer interaction. I really want to find out from the customers in a consensus way, how many of them are actually actively thinking through their AI deployments and agents. I really want to find out, does the rubber meet the road for them? Right?
What was interesting, the customer was talking just a while ago, was it LA
Times, yeah.
Yeah, LA Times. He was saying, that most folks don't have a policy in place for effective use of AI, and I think he's absolutely right. We did a survey last year of HR leaders, and it was only like 17% had a policy around how you actually use AI in the workplace. And that's one of the things where the human factors really come into it, right? It's not just putting the technology in front of people, but if I'm a customer service person and I'm incented to close a case as quickly as possible, do I just take what the AI gives me?
Yes.
Or do I look at it critically and decide whether it's giving me the right answer?
The verifiability.
So we've got to think the policies, but also what are the incentives?
How do you verify it, right? So
for people to use it when it's right. To provide those correction factors that are important.
You have to be able to verify.
Actually use it appropriately.
And so now what you cover so closely do you then have HR for agents? Because at some point you have to govern, right?
I think you probably remember, what was it, like a year and a half ago? Sarah Franklin at Lattice came out with a column, very forward-looking, about we're going to need something like talent management for agents. And I thought it was really interesting to see how HR and the sort of like CRM and salespeople react completely different to that kind of notion. Right? So HR is like, absolutely not. This is horrible. And sales and marketing folks are like, yeah, that's probably true. And I think part of it has to do with the way the HR world and the CRM world thinks about data differently, whereas HR, I'm the steward of data, and CRM, I can play it a little bit more fast and loose. But also how I think about productivity, right? Because historically, the HR department, if we talk about time savings, that means headcount reduction.
That does.
Whereas in sales and marketing, it means growth.
It's Tuesday.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, because and think about the typical salesperson hates their CRM.
Right.
And so anything that's going to...
I don't have to enter things in CRM.
If that's going to automate and streamline, they'll be like, yeah, if that does that.
Right. So I think it would be very interesting to see how Zoho kind of adapts its message, because it's got to be very different still today for an HR buyer versus a sales and marketing buyer. You're
right. And I think was a Sridhar slide today in his presentation where he used the term digital employee. We've heard digital labor, digital worker. And to your point, that's where we have to be really careful, because a lot of this automation stuff does mean loss of headcount, certain headcount. And so how do you sort of message around, okay, since we're going to lose some jobs, some roles, because they're going to be automated, how do you then sort of upskill, reskill people to actually get those new AI jobs?
And what are those new AI jobs, right? And what some of the interesting talent management folks are doing is say, how do I apply AI to look at my overall skill structure today? Say, what are the jobs that are adjacent to those jobs that are going to be replaced, and how do I map up training for those folks, kind of bring them into those
What's
roles.
That transition phase look like, right?
Yeah.
And so who then do you think will manage that HR for agents? Is it going to be IT?
I think everybody's got to have a seat at the table, right? Because the business leaders are the ones that are going to be making decisions about how do I grow, expand, transform my team. HR has got to be on board for all of the HR piece of that, but also thinking strategically about how do I train, how do I reskill, how do I give each employee a personalized journey. And IT ultimately has got to support all of this stuff. So they're going to have a role in it too. I think it means that everybody's going to have to play nicer with everyone else than they kind of
we've always talked about HR, IT alignment for years, right? Will we finally see that now with as agents run wild?
We could spend another half an hour talking about that, I think.
Right. So what do you think? So what are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to talking to customers, right? That's always a part of it. And even though you talk to customers on an ongoing basis, you always learn new things.
Especially when it's in person, right?
When it's in IRL.
I love it.
IRL, yeah. But I think it's always also interesting to dig in on sort of product strategies for as many of these companies that are talking about making an overall Zoho decision and the benefits of that approach from a cost perspective, from a support perspective, from a rationalization perspective. They also have to differentiate their products on their own.
Yes, that's true. Because each company will have each unique project and unique data sets and so forth. So how do you sort of, and we haven't talked about data yet, which is one of the big things that Sridhar was talking about. The data piece of it is going to be so important. How do you sort of aggregate and get your data right? Because the AI systems are going to be only as good as the data that you have.
Yeah, and I think it'll be really interesting to see too. It seems like a lot of the sort of Zoho One or all Zoho customers have had the benefit of not having a ton of technical debt. Right, so they hasn't necessarily had to work through all of those pieces. Whereas you go to larger organizations, a lot of them are going to have some of these legacy systems that they need to unplug or wrap around or whatever their strategy is.
They're going to have bad data in places that old CRM system from whenever, that's like, oh, where did that come from? Right? And so Sridhar talked about one at Zoho, privacy. That was sort of their big umbrella in terms of privacy and that permission layer. And I think that's huge because that's the one thing we don't really talk a lot about with AI. We talk about risk sometimes, but we don't really focus on, especially when you talk to large organizations, the privacy, the data security piece of it is going to be critical.
Well, and so many projects are getting hung up in security review right now because it's not necessarily concerns about data leakage or that sort of thing. That's not what I'm hearing.
Right.
It's more about, if you're developing it with a model that doesn't have that permission layer, or if you're doing the more kind of DIY approach, how do you make sure that whoever then is exposed to it is allowed to see the data that they're actually seeing?
Yes. What's the permission structure? Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be big, I think. So privacy, that permission layer stuff is going to be big. And again, as you get these large enterprises, they're used to, again, targeting SMBs and so forth. And I'm not sure what the cutoff is now for SMBs to large, but we think with 5,000 more, give or take, those are way more complexities.
Yeah.
In those large
I thought it was interesting, too, that they're talking about, now having a direct sales force in the Americas and in India.
Yeah.
And really starting to go more strategically after tapping markets where they want to have a particular presence and going after them from a sales and marketing perspective.
Exactly.
Which historically Zoho hasn't done a lot of.
And so I know a couple of the use cases, the customer case studies from Raju, they did sort of from what I heard him say, I'm not sure if it's official, but some level of professional services, because they're sort of taking on these larger projects like the cruise line you mentioned, and they're literally actually implementing solutions for them. So this is going to take a higher level of professional services for these larger enterprises.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see as well. We talk about enterprise, you're looking at a broader partner ecosystem that they need to continue to build out. I saw some pretty big names on the slide this morning for partners, so it'll be interesting to see how that that plays out.
Yeah, I think what partners account for 20% or so of their revenue, right? So we'll see. Interesting.
Great. Well, excellent. I think that's a great place to stop for today.
Yeah.
It's always great to spend time with you, IRL.
Likewise, IRL.
Yes, and hello to Patrick and Biscuit.
Yes, Biscuit's my dog. Patrick is hers.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Dave Smith, and thank you for joining us on The Crunch.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.